Swedish defense firm Saab wants Canada to buy and build its fighter jets. The firm is pitching a partnership with Bombardier and promising to create up to 10,000 jobs along with it.
In Canada, to do their own upgrades, to build parts of it, to do final assembly and tests, we, as Saab, we are prepared to do that technology transfer to Canada and support that build.
The company that makes the Gripen has told CTV News that 10,000 manufacturing and research jobs could land in Canada if Ottawa adds the Swedish fighter jet to its military fleet.
Saab, the Swedish defense manufacturer, is actively courting Canada with an ambitious proposal to purchase and domestically produce its fighter aircraft. The company has outlined a collaborative framework with Bombardier, projecting the creation of approximately 10,000 employment opportunities. The manufacturer behind the Gripen has informed CTV News that roughly 10,000 positions in manufacturing and research sectors could materialize within Canada should Ottawa decide to integrate the Swedish fighter into its military aviation fleet. The plan envisions Canadian facilities handling their own modifications, manufacturing components, conducting final assembly procedures, and performing testing operations. We've demonstrated our readiness to execute this technology transfer to Canada and facilitate that industrial capacity development. In March 2025, a single statement from Ottawa generated shockwaves that extended well beyond Canadian territory. The nation's defense minister disclosed that Canada was conducting a serious reassessment of its agreement to acquire 88 F-35 fighter aircraft from Lockheed Martin, catching most observers completely off guard. The contract, initially valued at $19 billion, has already escalated beyond $27.7 billion, with lifetime expenditures anticipated to reach as high as $33 billion. While that figure certainly attracted attention, the genuine shock lay in another revelation. Canada was openly contemplating a potential return to Sweden's Gripen E, the identical aircraft that had been eliminated during the 2021 selection process. No NATO member state had previously ventured this far after committing to America's premier fighter initiative. This development represents something beyond simple budgetary concerns or acquisition complications. It suggests a fundamental transformation in how a middle power balances external pressure, alliance obligations, and sovereign decision-making within an increasingly complex international environment. What motivates Canada to reconsider a contract of this magnitude at this advanced stage and in such a transparent manner? And what are the implications if the country ultimately reverses course? Canada's journey toward the F-35 has been anything but linear, with origins tracing back almost 2 decades. In 2010, Ottawa made a significant and divisive choice by declaring its intention to purchase 65 F-35 fighter jets without conducting an open competition. That approach instantly generated political opposition and widespread public skepticism, fueled by questions surrounding cost clarity, extended commitments, and whether the platform genuinely aligned with Canada's defense requirements. Opponents maintained that the government had committed itself to a program without thoroughly grasping the fiscal and strategic implications, although advocates insisted the F-35 embodied the next generation of aerial warfare and ensured compatibility with partner nations. The mounting criticism became substantial enough that by 2014, the entire initiative was subjected to fresh examination, resurrecting issues many assumed had been conclusively resolved. Almost 10 years subsequently, following extensive evaluations, discussions, and postponements, Canada re-entered negotiations with a comprehensive and transparent competition. In 2023, the government officially chose the F-35A Lightning once more, this instance pledging to acquire 88 aircraft. The arrangement was characterized as the most substantial defense acquisition in Canadian history, measured by both scope and expenditure. According to the terms, the initial 16 jets were projected for delivery in early 2026, with subsequent units arriving incrementally through 2032. These aircraft were intended to succeed the CF-18 Hornets, a squadron that had served Canada for over 4 decades and was becoming progressively costlier to operate. When the agreement was finalized, authorities portrayed the determination as definitive and conclusive, the outcome of thorough investigation and rigorous evaluation. That confidence proved short-lived. As 2025 drew near, the political and economic circumstances surrounding the initiative began shifting dramatically. Commercial relations between Canada and the United States deteriorated under President Donald Trump, who explicitly threatened comprehensive tariffs on Canadian exports. At one juncture, Trump suggested a 25% tariff on the majority of Canadian products, a proposal that generated upheaval throughout Canadian sectors already experiencing strain. His public statements escalated further, implying that Canada should contemplate becoming the 51st American state, remarks that provoked widespread indignation throughout the nation and intensified public sentiment regarding economic and political reliance on Washington. Defense matters, previously regarded as distinct and specialized concerns, abruptly became intertwined with considerations of sovereignty and national pride. The critical juncture occurred in June 2025 when Auditor General Karen Hogan published a comprehensive assessment that dramatically transformed public perception of the F-35 initiative. Her investigation revealed that the commonly referenced estimate of 19 billion Canadian dollars failed to capture the program's actual expense. When infrastructure enhancements, sophisticated weapons platforms, and initial operational expenditures were incorporated, the amount increased to $27.7 billion. Throughout the complete operational lifespan of the program, Hogan cautioned costs might escalate as high as $33 billion. That constituted approximately a 75% surge over the initial projection presented to Parliament. The revelations carried substantial impact, not merely due to their magnitude, but because they validated persistent concerns that the program's genuine expense had been minimized from inception. With those statistics now accessible, Ottawa encountered renewed demands to justify whether the F-35 remained the optimal choice available. The consideration no longer revolved exclusively around capabilities, but encompassed value, autonomy, and extended ramifications. Precisely at this juncture, a former competitor discreetly re-emerged into discussions.
Saab, the Swedish aerospace corporation behind the Gripen, had been unsuccessful in the 2021 competition. Nevertheless, it never completely withdrew from Canadian engagement. Quietly, the enterprise preserved connections with Canadian authorities and defense strategists, establishing itself as an alternative should reservations about the F-35 resurface. Those relationships became apparent in August 2025, when Canada and Sweden formalized a fresh framework understanding centered on defense and aerospace collaboration, with particular attention to Arctic security. The scheduling was intentional. The Arctic has become increasingly vital to Canada's defense planning as Russia and China extend their activities in the territory, and Saab promptly emphasized the Gripen's developmental background in Sweden's own severe northern climate. The company's offering extended beyond technical specifications. Saab committed to assembling each Gripen E within Canada, proposing complete technology transfer that would enable Canadian technicians to service, adapt, and enhance the jets without depending on external authorization. According to Saab, the program would generate between 12,000 and 12,600 positions throughout Canada's aerospace industry, a commitment that immediately captured political interest. Those employment projections altered the character of the discussion. What had previously been presented as a selection between aircraft now incorporated industrial planning and economic sovereignty. Industry Minister Melanie Joly publicly declared that Canada needed to expect greater returns from military procurement investments, indicating receptiveness to Saab's proposition. She verified that conversations were progressing regarding assembling the Gripen domestically, reinforcing the concept that defense expenditures could function as instruments for national development rather than purely military acquisitions. Saab's presentation also emphasized versatility.
Sierra Fullerton, representing Saab Canada, contended that the organization had progressed beyond fixed concepts of aircraft classifications, stressing that Gripen technology could be enhanced continuously. The message was unmistakable. In an environment of accelerating technological evolution, adaptability held equal importance to stealth or absolute performance. That position resonated with those uncomfortable about prolonged dependence on a singular foreign platform. From this context emerged a compromise concept that began circulating among policy analysts. Canada could accept delivery of the first 16 F-35s already procured, then complete the remaining fleet with Canadian-manufactured Gripens. Theoretically, the approach seemed to reconcile alliance obligations with industrial independence. Practically, it generated challenging questions that persisted. In December 2025, Radio Canada released confidential assessment records from the 2021 Future Fighter Capability Project, providing an unusual perspective into how comprehensively the F-35 had exceeded its rivals. The data were unambiguous. From a maximum 60 points, the F-35 achieved 57.1, while the Gripen E obtained 19.8. Regarding mission effectiveness, the F-35 secured a rating of 97%, contrasted with 22% for the Gripen. Concerning long-term enhancement capacity across the aircraft's operational duration, the F-35 received a flawless score of 100%, while the Gripen attained merely 28%. These weren't minor variations. They represented a substantial disparity in capability, as determined by Canada's own assessment team. Distinguished figures within the Royal Canadian Air Force responded openly. Retired Lieutenant General Yvonne Blondin stressed that whichever aircraft selected would transport Canadian pilots into hostile situations, especially in an Arctic theater confronting sophisticated threats from Russia and China. Survival, he contended, required overwhelming technological advantage. Major General Chris McKenna reinforced that perspective, asserting directly that Canada demanded absolute superiority, not accommodation. He cautioned that a force constructed around 16 F-35s, augmented by an unspecified quantity of Gripens, would prove inadequate to provide the deterrent capability delivered by a complete squadron of 88 stealth fighters. That understanding prompted advisories from industry executives. Bombardier CEO Eric Martel warned that abandoning the F-35 could provoke repercussions for Canadian companies maintaining agreements with the American government. Bombardier independently holds two such arrangements, one for liaison aircraft and another for surveillance systems. An abrupt modification in defense strategy could jeopardize those contracts alongside opportunities for numerous smaller contractors integrated within the identical framework. Even the Gripen option contained underlying dependencies. The aircraft utilizes the American-produced General Electric F-414 engine, signifying the United States would retain control over export authorizations. Observers noted that Washington has employed such influence previously, withholding or postponing approvals to shape foreign policy decisions. In that respect, transitioning aircraft would not inherently eliminate American involvement. Public discourse also centered around anxieties of a purported kill switch within the F-35. While Lockheed Martin and the Pentagon have consistently refuted the presence of any remote deactivation mechanism, the speculation proliferated extensively on Canadian social platforms, intensifying distrust. The actuality resides elsewhere. The F-35 requires ongoing software modifications administered by the Pentagon's Joint Program Authority. That authority governs maintenance frameworks, upgrade trajectories, and most significantly, the aircraft's source code. Excluding Israel, no purchaser obtains access to that code, establishing a degree of dependence unprecedented in earlier generations of fighter acquisitions. If access to modifications were constrained, the aircraft's operational effectiveness could deteriorate swiftly. This structure represents a departure from established precedents. Historically, acquiring a fighter jet signified possessing the capacity to operate and maintain it autonomously. Within the F-35 arrangement, independence is restricted intentionally. President Trump once candidly acknowledged that aircraft provided to partners would never equal American variants because partnerships can transform. Without source code availability, purchasers must maintain confidence that modifications will remain accessible and adequate. Those apprehensions were validated by another Auditor General assessment in June 2025, which identified escalating expenses, infrastructure deficiencies, and workforce shortages within the F-35 initiative itself. Introducing a secondary aircraft category would magnify those obstacles, rather than resolve them. As of January 2026, no conclusive determination has been reached. The administration of Prime Minister Mark Carney remains dedicated to the initial 16 F-35s, currently under construction, while the destiny of the remaining 72 aircraft stays undetermined. Minister Joly has indicated that negotiations with Lockheed Martin will extend into early 2026, targeting enhanced industrial advantages for Canada. Defense Procurement Secretary Stephen Four has suggested that while complete cancellation seems improbable, all alternatives remain under active evaluation as discussions with Saab and European collaborators advance. What's your perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for additional content and activate notifications. We'll connect with you in the next episode.